Hey everybody, Joe Zimney here with Realty One Group in Irvine. I've been back for about a week now from my trip to Shanghai, where we conducted seminars for potential buyers. We worked with our channel partners, who are the local affiliates who work with these buyers locally in Shanghai daytime. And then we were able to get a really good sense of the marketplace and what the demand is coming from Shanghai and Beijing. So now I'm back here in Irvine. But while I was on my trip over there, we receive a lot of questions from these buyers who are less familiar with the U.S. real estate market, and it's our responsibility to help educate them. And one of the questions that always came up is, why would I use an agent? Why would I use a broker? Why don't I just negotiate the deal myself? Because a lot of buyers are certainly willing to do that. And the answer to the question brings me back to an anecdote, an example of a case that I ran into not long ago. And it is the cautionary tale for why you do not want to do real estate transactions on your own. So, as some of you might know, I used to work at Broadcom Corporation, the large semiconductor design manufacturing company based here in Irvine, California. I was on the global real estate team, so it was my responsibility to go out into the marketplace globally, in the Middle East, in Asia, in the UK, and in North America. It was my responsibility to go out and source sites where Broadcom was going to consider opening offices, setting up research and development facilities. So I worked with a great team over there, probably one of the best professional experiences that I've had. So in that context, one day a colleague came to me, and the story he told me was that he and his wife were living with his family. They had a new baby, and they wanted to buy their own home. It was the first time. They're not American citizens. They came here from abroad. So while they're living in their home with the family in a really nice neighborhood, one of the neighbors heard that they were looking for a house. So the neighbor approached them, and this elderly person offered to sell them her house. So they got a real estate contract, and they wrote in all the terms, and they signed it. And one of the terms was that the seller would be allowed to stay in the property for 6 months, and then the transaction would close and the buyer could then move into the property. So they signed the deal. The buyer gave the seller $30,000 as a deposit. 4 months later, the seller came back to the buyer and said, "Oops, I've changed my mind. I want to stay in the property for 2 more months." So she was asking for an extension. Now, my colleague had a big problem with that, obviously, because he and his wife had already made arrangements to move out of their family's home. They'd bought furniture. They had made arrangements to move all of their belongings from storage into the house. They'd already paid advance deposits for some additional services, and they'd lined up workers to perform renovation on the property. And now the seller's coming back saying, "Stop, we don't want to perform according to the contract." So when my colleague came to me, he was really distressed, and he asked me for my advice and for my help in getting him out of this dilemma. And so I read the contract, and I could see very clearly, it was very obvious, I think, to any real estate professional where the problems were in the contract. But because I'm not a real estate lawyer, and we don't like to give advice, we're not allowed to give advice in areas where we don't have professional certifications, real estate law, tax, and many other areas. I told him, you need to get a real estate attorney involved, because the real estate attorney will be able to read through the contract and show you where you may have the ability to renegotiate certain areas or potentially even avoid the contract. And that was my recommendation. He was very lucky, because I do know several very reputable, very experienced real estate lawyers. They typically tend to focus on either purchasing new property or secondhand sales or land development issues or litigation regarding real estate contracts. So I referred him over to my good friend Don Saunders down in San Diego. And I'm not exactly sure what the outcome was, because that was none of my business beyond that. That became a legal matter. But the point remains, and I highly recommend that before you decide to go out on your own and try to do a real estate contract, engage with a broker, engage with maybe 2 brokers, and engage with a real estate lawyer who's going to help protect you. The real estate lawyer especially is going to be able to foresee contingencies such as the one I just described, and they're going to be able to write in language to the contract that really helps you out when you need the help the most. The last place you want to be is litigating a real estate contract which has unclear language in it. What you want when the contingency arises is to be able to say, aha, we anticipated that, and there's language in the contract to address it. So go get your real estate lawyer. That's my tip for the week. So I'll be back in the next version of this podcast where I'm going to talk about information resources for real estate professionals here in Southern California. Number one, I'm going to talk about a few websites that I really like, where I get a lot of my information. And then number two, I'm going to introduce you to some of the latest technology that I use for both communicating and transaction management that have been most helpful for me this year, certainly. So I hope this helps. Go ahead and click on the link below. You can visit my website and look at some of the new homes that we're promoting this year. And you can feel free to contact me anytime or leave comments in the comments section of the website. And I'll be sure to be back in touch. All right, thank you.